Hello and welcome to the Life and Fight of a podcast. I am Jake Cross from UK Fighting Championships and Empire Grappling. I'm joined as always by my co-host Simon.
What's up, guys?
And I'm also joined by one of my business colleagues at UK Fighting Championships, self-proclaimed one of the best matchmakers in the world, in Aaron Aby. How's it going, Aaron?
All right, guys.
So, we will be just talking off camera, then we'll shortly be joined by Bryan Lacey. Some car trouble, so about 20 minutes behind, but we'll chat with Aaron because we've not had Aaron on the podcast as of yet. Aaron is a professional flyweight for now all around the world. Tell us a bit about yourself, Aaron.
Well, you've introduced me with my mixed martial arts background. Obviously, head matchmaker at UKFC. Also coach out of IPC Wrexham, fighter out of the MMA Academy. Also coached the Welsh MMA team as well. That's my sporting background, really.
So obviously, we've known each other for many years now. You got into the sport a long time ago now, but you played football before then. Do you still follow football? Do you still? How is your sort of relationship with football now?
You know I'm a Liverpool fan. And you know we won the league.
In a little bit. So I'm guessing
I haven't heard anything about that yet.
I'm guessing the last couple of weeks it's been quite a decent thing to the fact that you've now won the Premier League after 30 years. What does that mean after being a Liverpool fan? You've won it for the first time in sort of your lifetime, really?
Yeah, obviously a bit of an anticlimax, in honesty. Like with it being paused and knowing we were really going to win the league and having to wait 3 months to do it, like settled in rather than doing it like straight off properly with all the fans and everything. So, but obviously still a good achievement, and then hopefully we can do it again next year.
Like you say, it is quite deflating because, and this isn't a dig in any way, because you had nothing to play for. It was just sort of going through the motions to win the league. You weren't in the FA Cup then. By then, you literally just been knocked out of the Champions League by lockdown had happened. There's nothing for you really to come back to apart from going through the motions. Would you have preferred just to at least it been a bit more competitive coming back, or?
I'm just happy to win the league. I've seen it be competitive before, and we always mess it up. So I'm happy we won the league, and if we win it by record amount of points, or we run it in the earliest time, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, you've still got a few records to break. I think you've just broke, is it Arsenal's record from 2004 when they were the Invincibles amount of wins in a season. You can still break the points barrier of over 100 points, which City did a few years ago. Two big things that can still happen.
Yeah, I think we broke the record for the biggest loss after winning the league as well, so that's another one.
It was a strange one, that, because you had your full squad team out. It wasn't like you made change or anything like that. Maybe just because of the celebrating, it just wasn't there. City just did what City can do to you.
I think most of our players had double vision from an alcohol-filled few days.
So, last time you fought, we'll quickly touch on that, was in Dubai. Me and Steve was with you. Talk about that experience for yourself, how what it was like going halfway across the world to sort of compete and fight.
It was good. It was my 30th birthday as well. And I think everyone dreads turning 30. It's like not one of those 16, 18, 21-year-old things. And I'm sort of like, people saying at home, what you going to do for your 30th? And I'm there trying to put it off. And then like 2 weeks before my birthday, I get the call, do you want to go fight in Dubai? I'm like, yeah, sound. Let's do it. So obviously that made my birthday special, and like doing what I love, going out there to do it, taking on their home fighter. Never been to Dubai. The experience of traveling, fighting was amazing, really. And then going out there, getting the win. Just want more experiences like that now.
Definitely. How was the sort of prep for that then? Like, because you said you got 2 weeks out from the fight. How did you? Do you year round stay ready, or do you?
Yeah, I'm never like not in the gym. It's what I love to do. I'm not one of those type of fighters who will train 6 weeks for a fight and then you won't see me for 6 weeks after. I'm always in the gym training, coaching. I keep my weight down. I'm always around 125, so I don't really cut any weight. Funny story though, we took Jake's scales just in case, and we were weighing ourselves like up to the fight, and I was like coming in on Jake's scales like 123 pound, 122 pound. So me and Steve like, shit, you best get eating. So we're eating absolutely everything in sight, even the day before the weigh-in. Anyway, the official scales come, and you can go to the hotel and check your weight. So we go the night before the weigh, and I step on the scales. I'm 130 pounds.
No.
So like, oh my god, what was that? I've just been out. Literally, I had 3-course meal, like a massive plate of like pasta, like healthy pasta, loads of food, and like smashed it. And I'm like, oh no. So then that night, I'm having to get in the bath and hit pads and roll a stay in the room to make sure my weight comes off.
There's more to that story, because what time did we fly in the morning? Like 7, 8 o'clock or whatever it was. Then like 11 o'clock at night, it's like, can someone pack me some scales? And I'm like rushing around trying to find some bathroom scales that will fit in. And the funny thing was, in the bathroom, because we couldn't tell, because we didn't have a weight at first, where we couldn't tell what was the right weight, and we had them on, there's like an extension on the back of the bath. And he's like putting the scales on there, and he's stood on there, so he's like turns from 5 foot tall to 9 foot tall. It's brilliant. But you made it. Dominating performance. Especially, we realised that the heat and the humidity was a lot different than we expected it to be. But yeah, you were doing training on the beach days before, so you got used to that quite quickly. Just off topic or on topic, did you realise the guy that was in the main event of that event in Pro Bellum is the co-main event next Wednesday?
Yes. Yeah.
The guy that they built it around, didn't they?
Quite a late signing though, was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure when it was put on, but I was literally doing a review before this, and I was like, I recognise that name, and then I clicked on it. It said Pro Bellum 7th of Feb, and I was like, that's the main event guy, the guy that they built the Pro Bellum card basically around.
Yeah, I think it's quite a late announcement, because I seen he signed with the UFC maybe a couple of weeks back, and then literally he's straight into the fight straight away. But I think he's managed by MTK, so yeah, which are connected to Pro Bellum, aren't they?
So with regard, obviously, loads of people know your story. We would love to do a full podcast, and I don't think it's fair to try and squeeze it in 20 minutes. So we'll definitely have you back on to tell you your full story. Let's maybe touch on UKFC then. What do you enjoy being part of the team there, and the matchmaking, and where do you see sort of a future there?
I love matching fights. Like, obviously, to be in the fight game, love the fight game. And it's almost like, playing Football Manager as a kid. It's almost like I'm doing that, but in the MMA fight game and with real people, like building a roster of fighters, putting them together, trying to make the best cards. And the most enjoyment I get out of it is obviously matching good fights. And I also feel like we've built a roster, not just me personally, that is going to go on to big things in the future. I think a lot of the up and coming guys and our champions and the people who are competing for our belts have bright futures in the sport. So for me, like, I get a lot of satisfaction of pushing those guys, making the best fights, but making them develop and go on to hopefully better things. Yeah. Like, I would love for one of the fights we matched on one of our cards to be in the UFC in the future, or maybe future UFC champ. I honestly think like that's the strength of the roster we have there. So for me enjoying it now, it's like matching those fights and those type of guys. And like some of the fights we've had on the show, like they're all well matched, so they're all good fights. And for me as a matchmaker, like, I see maybe on other shows it's about like protecting people, whereas the relationship I have with a lot of coaches is about pushing people. So if they've got the potential to go somewhere, it's about matching them in the best fights possible so they can learn and develop. Because when I turned pro, I was 16-0 amateur. And my last few pro fights, I took like one fight at 66 kg when I was weighing 60 kilogram. Ended up being a fight of the night, but it was just to get me more challenges because there wasn't the scene wasn't like it is now with the amount of fighters. Like out of those 16-0 fights, I would go to like events where you'd fight twice in one day. You turn up and you didn't know who you're fighting, and you'd fight in the morning, and then in the afternoon. I did like a couple of them. So now the amateurs are training like pros. So the level is developing. So when I turned pro, like I was already fighting people like Mick Gerrard, Josh Banger, who were top 15 in my weight class. So like for me, I've learned from that I want our guys on our rosters to have those challenges, those lessons that you develop from, to go in and take that into their pro career ready. So like that for me is about pushing them people with that potential and not protecting them. Making sure that they can get the biggest amount of growth, because it's something I wish I would have had a bit more of, that experience at amateur against those high level guys. Like some of the guys now in our amateur ranks, they could go and fight top 20 pro straight away.
So like,
tomorrow.
So those that like aren't fully aware of what goes into like the matchmaking, because like for the uneducated, they may just think that you're sort of picking names out of a hat sometimes. Like how much extra work and research do you do to ensure that you're going to also get entertaining fights, but also a challenging fight for both fighters?
Quite a lot, especially in the initial period. Like coaches probably thought I was a bit annoying, like because I would even for a debut fight. It's not a debut if one guy's been training 7 years and one guy's been training 2 years. That's not a fair fight. Or it's not a debut fight if a guy's had 24 kickboxing fights and the other guy is coming in, with nothing. Like I'm sure you know Robbie Fallon. When he was an amateur, I think he was already a brown belt. Yeah. So like he was jumping in straight away and already fighting like people like Jack Cartwright to do it properly. So quite a lot of work, especially in that initial stage when I was new to it. I wanted to make sure I was doing it properly. So I wanted to like research the gym, who was behind the gym, how long they trained. I'd be like, has he got anything any background anywhere else? And they were like, why is he asking me how long he's been training for? He's a debut guy. But it matters. So to make I would feel really bad if I matched a poorly matched fight and someone got hurt or even someone lost. So like I think you have to do that background work, and like I'll even watch fights if they've had 2-3 fights, because again, someone who's 3-0 is still could be completely different to another guy who's 3-0 who's fought completely different opponents. So I think you've got to make sure that you're doing that background work as well, because it is important, and we all know that records in MMA can get padded. And then there's also guys who will fight anyone who might have a mixed record, and you're like, yeah, but he's really good. Like he's got a mixed record for a reason. Yeah. So I think you have to take that into consideration as well, and maybe people don't expect that, but I expect it of myself.
That's a good way to put it. Like I've been to quite a few UKFC events, and like I say, the matchmaking there is brilliant. Like entertaining fights, you've got the sort of the right level of opponents for each fighter there, and it's just one of my favourite local shows, to be fair. Yeah,
that's good, and that's something like also like try and take pride in. Even the age of fighters, I think plays a different, like, because I'm looking at that because man strength does exist, experience does exist, and like you don't want to be putting a 16-year-old against a 30-year-old. Even though the kids coming up like this time, like I was been training with young lads for a while, and they're good. But I think you have to make that as well. And like there'd be nothing worse for me than people like, oh, they look after guys, or they were evenly matched fights. Like I haven't done my job if I haven't done that. And And I think like I'm at a point where I have quite good relationships with people, and like I'm honest when I talk to them about like how I want to match their fighters, and like a lot of the good gyms with experienced coaches who know what it takes to get to that high level, they back me. Like if I rung up Phil Turner at Aspire and said, "Oh, I've got this guy for Liam," sometimes he might like he'd go, "That's too easy."
Which
you know, because they understand me and I understand them, and they know we want to be pushing them guys so they can have these lessons.
A prime example and from Aspire was Dakota when she made her transition from the Thai kickboxing K1 side, wanted to make her amateur MMA debut. It was a pain in the ass to even try a match in the UK. I think we had to go over in Europe to try and get a debut because she had so much experience. But her MMA was basic, and they did say that, but they wanted a test for her, and it's been leaps and bounds since then. I feel like Aspire is one of them gyms where they want to test their fighters no matter where they're at. Do you find, I know as well, but do you find there's a lot of gyms that are like Aspire, but then on the flip side, there's a lot of gyms where they want the too easy fights where you're at a point where you think, I can't even match these because it's not fair enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, obviously, not going to speak about individuals in specifically and stuff, but if they're doing that, I feel like they haven't got, even though they want their athlete to win, they're not going to develop their athletes to the best of their ability. And it almost becomes more about them as an individual coach, maybe wanting that winning record, or like we want our gym to go 5-0 rather than we want our athletes to progress. And I think part of the process is progressing. And you know me, Jake, some of those relations, like I don't obviously fall out with a lot of people, but I will stop like matching their fighters if they're not willing to take on fair fights, you know, because some fights are going to be 60-40 maybe in one person's favor when you look at it, but it's when teams want it 90-10 in their favor, 80-20. And that can't always, that's not fair matchmaking. So you do develop those relationships with some teams, and unfortunately you lose other relationships with other teams because of the way you want to do it.
I guess that's sort of them just sort of shooting themselves in the foot, so to speak, and they're not going to, like, they want the fighters to keep the perfect record, but if they're not willing to put them out sort of in a challenging situation, and they're going to just sever ties with the shows where it's going to actually progress their athletes and their fighters, and on that it's going to have the knock-on effect that they think it's going to have with the perfect record is going to probably draw more people in. But if they're not actually challenging the fighters and putting them on a stage where they can display a good skill set, it's going to have like the negative effects.
Yeah, definitely, and especially at amateur level. Like when you go pro, and a lot of the, like 90% of the fights I match are at amateur level. When you go pro, that record gets wiped. You know, and you want to be going into a pro career if you want the future in the sport, where you've had the best lessons and the best challenges at amateur level.
Yeah.
So like I said, 90% of those fights I'm trying to match amateur. So I'm trying to make the best pros. Like we're talking about, like what I said about Football Manager earlier, playing on that as a kid. I'm trying to make my best team better. And I see UKFC as almost like my roster. So I want the best roster. I want to be able to put my UKFC against any show in Europe who has amateur fighters and go, right, this is my champ at this weight. These are my 3 best guys at this weight. Let's go at it. And I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm padding people's records and giving them easy fights.
I agree. I agree with what you're saying there. A lot of these teams will be found out at some point, whether it's later on in the amateur fights or when they turn pro. If they've had a padded amateur record and they start fighting the pros, it is the the amateur rule set and the pro rule set is so close anyway that the transition is quite a lot easier. But when you're starting to go up the ranks in the pro ranks, you will be found out very easily. And you need that experience in the amateurs just to play a bit of fantasy, because like you said about the football manager and stuff, and you how highly you rank the sort of flyweights and bantamweights now, which is sort of around your weight division. Obviously, you just don't have to name all the names, but is there any fighters in the flyweight amateur, even amateurs now, bantamweights, that you would have wanted to face 10 years ago?
Like obviously, when I was coming up, all of them, you know, because that's like not out of no disregard, but I also appreciated that. I think a lot of the guys at the amateur level now were better than me when I was at that amateur level, because of their full-time training now.
Yeah,
you know, a lot of the amateurs, and that's what I think. I think a lot of our guys are at that level where they can jump into those pro fights. Like Mokayev, for example, he's signed with Brave, and he's got a bright future in the sport, and he could go on already and compete with the best in the world. You know, they're coming from that background, and it's a bright time for people in the sport now, because, you know, it's getting more professionalized. More people are getting involved in the sport. More money's coming into the sport. Also, that scientific background. Like I was having a conversation the other day, and, you know, back in the day, training was you turned up, you had a fight with whoever turned up there, and you went home. The structure of the training sessions and the periodization of training programs, they weren't back around then. You only have to watch, like with football or rugby or the UFC from 20 years ago and see how that level has changed, because it's evolving. It's the same with 100 meters, or, you know, the 5-minute mile, and then it was the 4-minute mile. No one's going to break that. No, but it's developing, and it's progressing, and like that's why I'm made up for the guys we got coming through and their futures in the sport, and I really do think some of them can go all the way.
Awesome. So I think Lacey's due to join us any minute now. He's just messaged me saying he's just setting up. So quickly, let's touch on Aaron. You're based in Wales with your gym and your circuit around there, and we have obviously the announcement from England yesterday that gyms can start opening from July 25th. You've had an announcement today saying that pubs and bars can open, I think it's from August 1st or something like that anyway. Have you had any news about your side of the gyms, and where do you feel like it's up to, and are you a bit disappointed that certain things are open before your gyms? I'm
fuming. In honesty, the logic has all gone out the window for me now, and for some reason our Welsh Minister thinks that gyms are a high-risk place. So I've been trying to phone him up, asking if he can provide me with the science to prove it. Because there is no science that proves it. There's a lot of science actually going against that now. And there's a lot of science coming out that the virus is an airborne virus. So it doesn't matter where you are, you know, the virus could be at the top of Mount Snowdon in Wales if it's airborne. Like, I don't understand the justification about, oh, you can go for a tattoo, which is close, or you can go to the pub, or you can go for your haircut, but you can't go to a gym. So for me, I'm feel let down by that way, especially like the guy isn't even like acknowledging the questions when people are asking him about gyms in Wales, and even outdoor sports in Wales seems to be behind as well. And I just can't see the justification with it now, especially when pubs opened. Like, having a logical conversation about what's safe and what's not goes out the window when you allow alcohol to come into the question. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying pubs shouldn't be open. I think they should be, but I also think gyms should be as well.
I put into our little UKFC chat before dinner, Aaron, about Scotland announced that their new football season starts on August 1st, and their Scottish rugby are going to start trialling having at least a small crowd from August 22nd. And the fact that Scotland and Wales seem to be behind us by around 3 weeks, I don't think England will be having crowds in August or earlier than August, but it's a good It's positive in the right direction. It means by the time we want to start getting events for ourselves, September, October, November, that we can start having a crowd, even if it is limited, because as much as we've enjoyed the UFC without a crowd, the local shows like ours that need it to try and make any money, we don't have these backers behind us. And the crowd is, especially with real school of football, the crowd is definitely the 12th man. It makes it a bit better. I can't watch the football without any crowd noise, and even though it's artificial, it makes me just zone out from it. What do you feel like about it, Az?
Yeah, you know, the sports run off crowds, really, don't they? Even the finances are run off crowds, and I get the same when I watch a football and there's no crowd there. It's not the same. And even when I used to play, for me, I'm one of those type of guys. Like when I played for Wales, I would play better if there was 3,000 people there than if there was 50 people there. And I do think it makes a lot of. It's a big part of the sport, crowds, and I think it has made you appreciate them more. Obviously, we've seen some great fights in the UFC, and a lot of the fighters have been performing better in the UFC. Whether it's because of the crowd or maybe just because of the whole situation, you don't know. But yeah, I love having the crowd there as a fighter as well as a matchmaker. For me, definitely motivates. Gives me some extra motivation and extra energy.
Is there anything that you're trying to line up for yourself at the minute, MMA-wise, even if it's behind closed doors? I
have signed with the new management company, Man U Need, so I'm managed by them. I have signed with a new show. Man U Need, yeah, that's the only thing I'm good about. I've signed with a new promotion. I'm just waiting for it to get announced. Signed a 4-fight deal with them, so I'm just waiting on that coming through and the medical checks coming through, and hopefully that'll be announced soon, and hopefully I'll have something lined up.
Here he is. Oh, can you see him, Az?
Boys!
Yeah, mate.
How are we? You all right?
Oh. Turn it when you want, is it, mate?
Say again?
Turn it when you want.
That's right, mate. Listen, I've been saving the day. There's nothing I can't do. I'm a mechanic now, commentator, the lot.
Yeah, awesome.
Even a super daddy from that mug.
Look at that super daddy as well, mate, eh? Look at us. How are you boys? You all right?
Yeah, you?
Good, mate.
Not bad. Are we recording? Are we off? Or what?
We're already off. We've been speaking for a little bit.
Wow. Just
about the UKFC and Wales being a bit behind us and matchmaking and all sorts. But yeah, let's catch up with you then, Bryan. So since we last spoke, it's been about 26 episodes with me and Simon. You've grown a bit of a fuller beard. Your hair's a bit all over the place. What's been happening?
Mate, well, listen, do you know we've just had, on Radio 7 or whatever it is, you can have Women's Hour. Can we just have man's 10 minutes on this show, please? Because what a frigging day I've had. Supposed to have a beautiful house to myself, all empty. Me and the dog just chilling out. My wife, I told her about 7 times, get your tyres done. Just go to a place, get them done. Just go and get them done. They need doing. She leaves the house, 20 minutes down the road, boom, tyre's gone. So I've had to go fix the tyre. She didn't have a locking wheel nut in it, so I had to come back. Then I had to go to Halfords because she didn't keep the wrench in the car because she didn't think that's what you needed to do. So why would you? Why would you have the locking wheel nut and the wrench in the car? Then I had to go to Quick Fit to meet one of those pricks and argue about a tyre and the size. Then I had to take it back. And then I've come back and I've got myself ready for this. I've washed my hands. I've had a shower. And to flip it round from the masculine of me changing tyres, she's got to take my hairdryer to her mates. So I've got wet hair. I'm trying to be all masculine, but I couldn't get the volume in it, lads. I just couldn't get it going. So
you can't be masculine and own a hairdryer, mate.
Listen, if she'd taken my straighteners as well, then there'd be real trouble, all right? Don't get me started.
They don't go. They're not. They don't go together.
Oi, back off, all right?
Bryan, people like Simon, well, definitely Simon and close to us, don't understand about long hair and how much hairdryer and straightener is needed.
Never had it.
and I tell you what, changing a tyre has ruined these nails, boys. It's ruined them. It's ruined them. Oh,
So
anyway, let's get on to fighting. Come on,
Yeah.
let's do that.
So we'll touch on this weekend's card. I'm also touch on the midweek card because we've got so many British fighters in that we've all worked with over the last few years. So we'll make sure we give them a shout out. So we'll start on 251. We'll sort of start at the bottom. There's a few fights in there that I'll pick out and see what you guys think. So we've got fellow Welshman Aby in John. I'm on the wrong card. 1 second, guys. Apologies. I was thinking that was the wrong one.
The Welsh aren't yet, mate.
I know, yeah. So we start off on the first fight for tomorrow night is local lad from England, Davy Grant against Martin Day. Anyone want to start us off with Davy Grant?
I've not heard that name for a while, if I'm honest.
He's
Davy Grant.
SBG now?
SBG up there, South Shields, right? Up there. And, mate, Davy Grant is a dude. He is just one of the loveliest guys. And also, he's had a run of bad luck with injuries, I think. But he's one of those guys that you, like you said, you haven't heard his name for a while. But he earned his spot in the UFC. And now it's great to see him on one of these cards and great to see him back out there. I mean, I've got nothing but love for Davy Grant.
Yeah. I think he does a bit of training in SPG Manchester as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was there when Carl Tanswell was there. I got the privilege of training with Davey quite a few times, and when we went out to the Ultimate Fighter, I went with Mike Wooten.
Wow!
It was me, Mike Wooten, and Davy Grant, and I went because you didn't have to, but you needed to hit pads, and Mike wanted obviously someone to go out there, train with him, and hold the pads with him during the tryout. So he come close to Davey, and obviously, as you, Brian, said, he has been unlucky with injuries, but I think this weekend's a good fight for him.
Yeah. It seems like right now from people that we see on social media is that Davey right now has got a lot of hype behind him. People are expecting big things now, and he can make a run towards it. I can predict a finish in this one against Martin. I think it's a good opponent for him right now. And
is it his debut in the UFC, Martin Day's?
Second fight, I believe. I think he's lost his
not
debut.
fought in 2 years, I don't think. So if he's he's not fought since November 18, so nearly 2 years, and that was his debut. Lost split decision to I don't know what to try and pronounce this, Pyang Yulu. But yeah, I think it's the right sort of fight. They've both been out a little while, and Davey can hopefully come in, hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think he's well-rounded as well, isn't he? He's got good grappling, good striking, good wrestling.
Yeah. So
yeah, I do think it's a good fight for him.
Definitely. Moving up the card, another sort of UK-based fighter is Danny Henry, who's got a lot of hype behind him against the guy that seems to be always in fighting the Brits in Makwan Amikani. I think Makwan's got to be favourite based on who he's fought before, but just like Grant, I think Danny's got a lot of hype behind him coming out of Scotland, and I think was he in the EFC as well for a little bit before this? Am I right by that?
Yeah, a couple of wins in the EFC.
Yeah, he was featherweight champion there. Yeah, that's right. Aby, what do you think about this one? Do you think Makwan has got the experience and will take this one? Do you think Danny will make the upset?
On my UFC predictions on Topology, I've gone for Danny Henry.
How? Have you made a decision?
I think he has an advantage, hopefully, in the grappling. And I think he comes from a good gym. Don't get me wrong, I do think Makwan Amikani is the favourite and is a good fighter. I just think sometimes you can sleep on the smaller nations like Scotland, and I think obviously they're going to get a lot of good preparation in, hopefully. I think he can get the win.
Oh, definitely.
What are you, Brian?
Yeah, no, I like the fight. I like the fight a lot. I think they're both coming off a loss, so they're both going to want to go in there and prove something. I think Danny Henry is very talented, very dangerous. I think Amikani is just so well rounded. He's proved that in a lot of his fights. His fight with Arnold Allen as well, that showed a lot of grit. He had to go through a lot in that. So I think it's a great fight. I think this is like really good matchmaking. They're both coming off the loss. They're both Amikani, I think he's SPG Island. Is that right? He's on Dublin. Is he with?
Was
out there
previously? Yeah.
So there's sort of gyms that are aware of each other and the skills, and they're sort of the training partners, and that they're going to be sharpening their tools with. But I don't think it's a great fight. I think hopefully it'll bring the best out of both of them. Hopefully they're not too cagey off a loss. Danny Henry, when he's loose and when he's free in there, he's a very dangerous opponent. But Amikani is somebody that just seems to he can make you look bad in fights. So Danny Henry's got to be very aware of that.
Danny Henry's got some good submissions on his record as well. That's where I think if I'm going to pick the underdog, I'm going for him to finish the fight with a submission, maybe.
Wow, interesting.
Nice.
Go on, Simon.
No, I'm just agreeing with what you said. I can see it being a Danny Henry finish with this.
Nice. I'm leaning towards Makwan on this one, just more based on experience. I think he'll just get the job done however he feels it needs to be done, whether it's a gritty decision or he finds an opening and finishes Henry. But I feel like Henry is a future prospect, and we all know with MMA, losses don't make your career. It's what you do afterwards and how you progress from there. Obviously, the main card will be a big talking point, but before we sort of move and talk mostly on the main card, is there any fights on the undercard and the prelims that stick out for you? Start with you, Bryan.
Oh, on that undercard, Marcin Tybura versus Maxim Grishin. That's two very experienced big guys going in there. That could be fun. But for me, the one I've really got my eye on, we've talked about already, is Davy Grant. Seeing him back in there, I'm very pleased he's involved in this. Like, it's been this Fight Island has been awesome for the European roster. This has just been made up by the Europeans, and to see someone like Davy Grant back on there, that's what makes me happy.
Yeah, you mentioned the Maxim Grishin fight there. He's a PFL vet. He did very well in the heavyweight division. But I think Marcin Tybura has literally fought the who's who and the dangerous guys in the heavyweight division. I think from what I've realised over the last few months, the guys that they've signed from the PFL, and a lot of them seem to be in the heavyweight division, have sort of stuttered on the debut. And I think this could be another repeat, but it doesn't mean they can't long-term do something. I think Marcin will have the experience and sort of nullify Maxim over the 3 rounds. Aby, what about you? Anything that sticks out on the undercard?
I think obviously Volkanovski is on the. Is he on the?
He's the main event.
He's on there, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously that division, like heavyweight division, is pretty open at the moment, and it only takes like 1 or 2 good spectacular wins, and you're knocking on the door for another title shot for him. But yeah, I think they could all be good fights. And I think, like we were saying, like whose debut was it this weekend?
Whose debut?
Yeah, was it someone's first fight in the UFC?
I think it was Roman Bogotov, I think, might be one.
Roman, but yeah, he's undefeated, yeah?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
I've been keeping an eye on that one. Like, looking at both their records, I think that one's going to be a bit of a tear up.
Between Leonardo Santos. I was reviewing this fight, and maybe you guys agree or disagree with this one. And obviously Lacey covers a lot of the Eastern European side. Roman Bogotov and Jiri, I'll try and pronounce this, Parachkov. Jiri is a rising veteran, and then Roman as well, M1 Global. From outside the bubble, looking at them events, they do. And me and Aby and Sam were discussing this about other promotions. They seem to sort of give you the right fights to build you up in them promotions, and then they get found out when they move over. Not all of them, but some of them. Bryan, do you know any of these 2 names from the scene at all?
So the Bogotov I know a little bit of, and he's coming through M1 Global, so they're decent fights, but I think they there's some names on there that certainly wouldn't stand the test of jumping to the UFC, or even those fighters that are coming out of the UFC. But
just look now at his last few fights was Michael Lebeau, who was 19-9.
Yeah.
And then Michael Silva, 21-7. Rubenelton Perrier, 20-5. So he's fought some guys with big records.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If they're fighting over there and they go up against the veterans, the records they got is crazy. You sometimes see a 22-year-old kid who's got 25 fights under the belt, and you're like, what what the hell? What's going on?
Yeah.
And that doesn't count their amateur. When you hear about their amateur career, I remember I was talking to one guy, and I think he was in like the 300s before he went pro.
Wow.
He was just ridiculous. I mean, he was an older veteran, but they were talking about the fights before he turned pro, and he was like, yeah, I've had at least 300 bouts before that, and that's not even classing the grappling. So you think about that, they will be doing their wrestling, their sambo, their hand-to-hand combat tournaments. It's madness. There's if you want to fight, go to Russia, basically.
Yeah.
Simon, what about you? Last man standing. Anyone on the undercard you're looking forward to?
That the Roman Bogotov fight and Leonardo Santos, but the Muslim Salikov and the Alizu Zaleski.
Good shot, mate. Good shot.
Keep an eye on that one as well. Like, just on the grappling aspects from Muslim, I just want to watch him again. Like, I really enjoy watching him, if I'm honest.
Awesome. So
Yeah,
the main card is stacked from top to bottom, and I think the first fight in there is sort of a feature fight with the names that we know, like Paige Van Sant against Amanda Ribas. Let's start with that one. It's a fight that could go either way. I'm sort of leaning more towards Ribas. I feel like Van Zant's maybe got one foot out the door now with maybe other projects, and he's sort of fighting this to get a bit of a paycheck and keep a name well known. Simon, what do you think about this one?
If being honest, I'm not that excited about this one. Like I said, Van Zant got a foot out the door. I can see Ribas coming in and taking this. I'm not. This one doesn't really do anything for me. Like, the next fight on the card, I'm really excited about. But if I'm honest, this will probably be when I go and get a drink from the fridge.
If you had to pick a winner, if you're going a winner, then Simon, you're picking Ribas.
Ribas for this one, yeah.
Brian, what do you think?
Listen, I think Van Zant has got the name, and she's got the look, and she's got a profile. But the UFC are excellent at building other fighters off at the right point, bouncing somebody off of somebody else's hype. So I think this is what they're setting up with Ribas. I think Ribas she's got good wins on her record. She's beaten Mackenzie Dern. Who else has she beat? Somebody else recently as well, which is another decent name in there as well. Randa Marcos, and Marcos I really rate. I think Marcos is a tough fight for anybody in that division in the UFC. So I think she will shine in this, and I think they will be using Paige Van Zant and her profile to raise that at Ribas.
Well, what you, Aby? Who are you picking on this one?
Yeah, I'm going with everyone else on Ribas, and I think the odds tell a story as well. I'm not sure. Is Paige Van Sant like 9-1 or something to win?
Wow, 9-1 on to wow.
I think she's big odds to get the upset, and I think what everyone's saying, she got a foot out the door. I'm not saying she's hiding what she's doing, but a lot more of her stuff isn't about fighting. If I get the odds up now, let's have a look. So
heavy underdog. I don't know how the Americans work it.
Well, 5.5 to 1 she is. The other girl, Amanda, is put £9 on, you win 1.
Yeah, but from the American terminology here, it's plus 525 for Van Zant and minus 850 for Ribas. So that's like when sort of Ronda Rousey was fighting the girls.
Yeah, they're big odds for fight game.
And I think.
Well, can I just jump in there? Because I just noticed something. Aaron Aby. Aaron, is that a chandelier behind you? Are you packing a chandelier in your house in Wales? Let me see.
Wait, I don't know what that is.
That is a chandelier.
It's just a mixed light when I pick a flicker switch.
Oh, mate.
I have no say what goes on in this house.
I'm just picturing like a 4-poster gold bed with mirrors on the ceiling now as well, mate.
I think during lockdown, I've never spent so much time here, and I'm starting to notice things. I'm like, why is that there?
Who's that other man in the bedroom?
Yeah.
It's normally you, Brian.
Shut up.
I'll be disappointed if he's got a hairdryer. I find one of them spare going on.
Listen, mate. Anyway, carry on. Back to fighting. Sorry, guys.
So next up is a rematch, which It's quite an interesting fight. There's a lot of backstory to this. Andrade beat Rose for the strawweight title around, was it May last year? Rose was sort of starting to pick up the pace in the fight, held on a bit too long in a submission. Andrade sort of rampage slam, and Rose was out, and she's not been back since. She does struggle a lot mentally. She's admitted stuff gets into her head, and she overthinks things, and that's why she decided to step away. Since then, Andrade lost the title, and then she hasn't really fought since. I think this fight is not the right fight right now, especially for Thug Rose. I feel like a fight before then to sort of build her back into it would have been better. But I feel like the way she started the first fight, if she sort of comes back in with that sort of mentality, that's fine. But if the loss is already in her head, I think she's already defeated. I would love Rose to win this one. I'm a big fan of Rose. We'll start with you, Brian. What do you think?
Listen, I'm a massive fan of Rose. Great story. Love Jessica as well. She's a very tough fighter. But you never know what the negotiations have been for a fight like this, because Rose came out and straight after the fight said, "I think I'm done. I don't really enjoy it anymore." Like she said about the mental side of it, the pressure it put on her. And I wonder if when they were trying to tease her back in there, because they know they've got a good thing with Rose. Instantly, both of us have talked about her story and what she's like. Also, her skill set is excellent. But I wonder if they said to her, "What will get you out? What will bring you back?" And I wonder if she wanted that fight straight away. So I wonder if this is something that they've done for her to get her back in there. Saying that, you've got to question what she's like mentally. I know that it's been documented. I think either one or two people in her family have died from COVID or COVID-related illnesses or something like that. So she was openly talking about that. So from that side, it's always a question of what Rose turns up, what she's going to be like mentally when she gets in there. Because if she's on point and she's fit and she's ready and mentally she's in the right place, I think she can win this. I think she can go back to what she was doing. It was a mistake. She held on to that Kimura and got slammed into the mat, and that's what ended the fight. And I think she knows it was a mistake. It's probably one she's relived in her head for a long time. And if she can go in there and get that win, hopefully we'll see her very quickly push towards going for another title shot as well, because she's the perfect story, background, even the team coming from the same team as Gaethje to go and get a title. It's the perfect package, and the UFC I'm sure will want to make the most of that if she can get past Andrade this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. Aaron?
I completely agree with Brian. I think if Rose turns up, who fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Rose wins. But I almost feel, she's one of those people which you don't know where she's at mentally, and I think that could affect everything. And I think you get that impression from her, like even in her interviews, where you can base on how she's going to perform by how she is mentally. She seems quite relaxed this week watching the Embedded. But yeah, like Brian said, she has said about retiring before, being done, not enjoying it. Or did she just maybe need that break to come back, get that fire in the belly, and we're going to see the best version of her? She does have a good coaching team. I know, obviously, Pat Berry does a lot with her at the moment, and that was documented in the Embedded and stuff. But I think if she turns up, she wins. But Andrade is a great fighter, and she's got the potential. It wasn't like that slam was a fluke. If you look at her, she's got a highlight reel of slams. She throws with a lot of venom. She's not like one like Rose, which will be popping the jab, picking the shots. So she's got the potential to finish it at any time. But it's one if I wouldn't bet on, because I don't know what Rose is turning up.
If you had to pick a winner, Aaron, who would you go for?
I'm going to go for Rose.
Can we put some money on that?
I hope she turns up. That's all I'm saying. That's what I've gone for on Tapology. I think technically, skill for skill, she's a better fighter.
Yeah. Simon, let's sort of get your prediction, also how you feel like the mental side will affect both of these, because Andrade is coming off the loss from a belt, but she's already beat Rose. She knows what to do to beat her. But then on the flip side as well, we know about the mental side with Rose, and that's her last loss. And did she have a foot out the door, a bit like Paige Van Zandt? How do you feel like it will go because of the mental side?
See, I reckon Andrade is going to come in with a point to prove, especially after the last loss and then with the win over Rose. So I think she's going to come in full of confidence and ready to try and put her away. Rose, though, I think she's quite an intelligent lady as well. And she's like Aaron said, she's got the right team around her. And I think that over this time off, she'd have been working with psychologists and people in that field to get her mindset right, help battle any demons that she may have. And coming into this fight, like, I think she's going to come in as Thug Rose, and I think she's going to come in, and I can't see a finish coming. I can see it being a decision win. But I think Rose is going to come in, she's going to switch it on, and I think provided she continues working, if she comes in on the night and turns up, provided she continues working with the team that sort of got her back to where she's hopefully going to be on Saturday night, I think she's going to have a very long run in this division and potentially keep the title for a long time.
Sweet. So that's 4 for Ribas and 4 for Rose. So we're not disagreeing on too much right now. Next fight is the first title fight, which is very, very interesting. In Petr Yan and Jose Aldo. Obviously, Jose, former featherweight world champion, one of the best fighters we've probably all ever seen over the last sort of decade and a half, against Petr Yan, who's one of the most dangerous fighters and unreal fighters, sort of that's risen through the ranks quite quickly the last couple of years. We'll start with you, as where do you see this fight finishing and who for?
I love Jose Aldo. I think when I started watching the game, I used to prefer watching the blue canvas of WEC.
Yes.
Because I'm a lighter guy myself, and the light guys weren't in the UFC at the time. So them types of people, Uriah Faber, Mike Brown, Dominic Cruz, Benavidez, they were like the guys I used to watch. But I just think Petr Yan is part of that new breed, almost. And I just think he's very well-rounded. Like, I know people are saying Faber was done when he fought him and stuff, but some of the techniques he was landing and the skill he was doing, it was like he was on a different level. And I think I'm going to have to head's going to have to go with him for this fight.
Interesting. Simon, we'll go to you next. Obviously, watching these fighters over the last few years and seeing where their careers have gone, have you got a preference between one and the other that leans you towards them?
Yeah, I'm similar to Aaron again, where sort of really enjoy watching Aldo fight. I'd love Aldo to win, but I just don't see it, if I'm honest. I think Yan's he's fresher, younger, he's got the skill set, and the bantamweight division, the UFC at the moment, is a very, very stacked division. And I can't see anyone, it'll be like the light heavyweight championship about 10 years ago, where there'll be just different champions every couple of fights. I think that's going to happen at the moment for the bantamweight, but I've got Petr Yan for this one. Yeah,
we discussed this with Jack Shaw on the podcast earlier in the week, that we feel like this will be a hot potato over the next few years with the challenges coming through, like Aljamain Sterling, and you've got Petr and Jose and Moraes, and all of them are just killers. But Bryan, lastly to you on this one, where do you see this fight going? Have you got a favourite yourself, and do you see an upset?
Look, I know Yan very well. I've commentated on 3 of his fights, and he's one of those fighters you want to watch live, because the pressure he brings in the cage is unreal. And you can see it in his eyes. He likes to fight. He loves to fight. One of the things I talked to when I spoke to his corners, and they were telling me a bit about his background. He comes from this big town, and he was basically somebody who would help people collect debts. This little £135 would knock on your door, and if he knocked on your door, the debt would be paid within a week. So he was one of these people that has always had this this aura of somebody that is intimidating, is scary. You see it in the cage, you can feel it even when you're cage side. But his skill set has got better and better and better. His only loss is against Magomedov, and that was a split decision. And actually, if you watch that back, I think Yan won that. I think he clearly won that as well. He came back. He beat Magomedov for the title in ACB, and then went off to the UFC, and he's just created a storm since he's been there. Every challenge he's had, he's risen to it, and he looks great doing it. He takes shots well. His combinations, his pressure is excellent. And I think with Aldo, the interesting thing with Aldo is that they trained together before. So when he lost to Magomedov, he actually went out to Nova União, and he spent time there with Aldo being one of his main training partners. I haven't watched the Embedded, so I don't know if they've talked about that or not. So they know each other. Huh?
He won the spars.
I wish I knew, mate. That's one set of sparring videos I wish I got sent. But they trained, they've sparred, they've felt each other before. And Jan coming down to bantamweight, Aldo coming down to bantamweight, I love Aldo, but I just think Jan is riding that wave. I think his skill set's too good. I think he's very powerful. I see it being a decision, but I can see Aldo taking a lot of damage in this fight. And I think it's going to be, I think this is going to be the real fight that shows Peter Yan exactly, and it should be when you're going for the belt, shows exactly what he is and why he's the one contending for the title.
Yeah, I think when Aldo stepped down to bantamweight, his weight cut and he looked dead gone and didn't look well at all. And I think he did really well against Moraes. I had him win that, even though he lost. It's a bit controversial, but that's probably why he's got this title shot. I think Aldo's got the skills to finish someone like Jan, I think, with the experience. But I think if I was to put my house on it or my money on it, I would pick Jan at 99% of the time.
The only thing I would say is sometimes Jan likes to be the tough guy in there. So sometimes he likes to show that you can take his shot. He's done that with a couple of his other opponents. And I think he's got to be careful with the leg kicks of Aldo, because if he thinks he can take them and show as like a macho thing and say, yeah, these are famous kicks and I can take or walk through them, you can't. They add up. Your body does not lie when...
The thing is, does Aldo throw kicks anymore?
Good point.
Not
It's
many.
a great point. It's a great point.
It was like, you almost wonder if he hurt his leg or something, because that was the staple of his game. And for someone, it's like Conor McGregor not throwing his left hand anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I don't understand why that's happened. Like, I would love nothing better than Aldo to come out and land 15, 20 leg kicks in that first round, but he doesn't throw them anymore. So that another thing that sways your decision. Like, his finishes don't seem to be that type.
Definitely. Well, again, we're all in sync here. We're all Jan. It's a weird one because I sort of want Aldo to win because I'm a big fan of him, watching him for so long. But I think this is sort of the new breed now, Petr Yan coming through. And I compare Petr Yan to the next guy in the next fight in Volkanovski. They seem to be quite similar, the way they've come up through the ranks, the way they fight, the sort of the build, the style, and they could be the long-time future of both divisions.
1 sec, I'll be back in a sec. Just get me dog.
No worries, Ava. So we've got the co-main here in Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. This is another rematch. They both last fought each other. Max losing his belt to Alex. Bryan, let's start with this one. Where do you see this? How excited for this one are you?
I'm really excited for it. I think it's a great fight. The featherweight division, since Max Holloway took the title and sort of made his stamp on it, changed completely because it was all a bit stale with Aldo and just dominating for so long. But then along comes Volkanovski, and you talk about Jan and Volkanovski. They come from the same gym, Tiger Muay Thai out there in Thailand. And the thing that puts a question in my head about this fight is how they've been able to train and prepare for this fight, because they both know each other. They're both going straight in on the rematch. Volkanovski, I know for a fact, has been training, has been sparring. He's been not just in Tiger Muay Thai, but down in Australia. He's been training with the likes of Alan Philpott has been one of the partners he's brought in down there. There's a couple of others that I've just left my mind. But Holloway's been very vocal about the fact he's not sparred. He's done a lot of solo training for this.
On Zoom?
On Zoom, yeah, exactly.
If
so
that's the truth, I'm honestly scared for him.
I 100% do not believe that.
You're a cynic, AB.
If I 100%.
It's all about conspiracies with AB. He wants to kind of catch people out.
Friggin', you've got a world title fight on the UFC, and you ain't breaking a little few guidelines to go and train with a few of your mates. Not a chance.
Listen, I'm bowing to that experience. I hope he has, because if he has and he's prepared properly, then I think this is going to be a very close fight. I'm a big fan of Holloway, so my heart wants Holloway, but my head says Volkanovski is going to take a decision again.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. There, I think the whole thing about him announcing about the training on Zoom and not sparring at all. I think of the caliber of Volkanovski, who's already beaten by a close decision. I feel like that's quite risky. I feel like in Holloway's position, if you're a fighter and you want your title back, you need to take it 100% seriously, especially if you just lost this guy. And even if there's a part truth for it, like he's only been training a little bit, I still don't think it's enough to beat Alex. I think this could be a more convincing win to Alex on this occasion, based on stuff that's coming out. So I'm going to go for Alex as well. But AB, obviously, you think that's bollocks. Where do you feel like this one's going to go?
100%. Max Holloway's been training properly. I don't think any of us know the type of guy he is, and also like the type of people we are to know that that's not true. But I do think, and I watched this fight again last night, and I want Holloway to win. I like Volkanovski as well, but I just think that Volkanovski had the skill set to beat Holloway, and I've never seen Holloway move back so much in a fight as he did against Volkanovski, and also staying southpaw because of the leg kicks when he was having he has a lot more success in his orthodox stance, especially against Volkanovski. However, I do think he come on stronger as the fight went on, especially in the last round. But if we give it 4-1 Volkanovski, I don't think Holloway can maybe make up that difference. Although there's a few slight tactical changes, if you can take away those leg kicks and those calf kicks and stay mobile and keep his numbers up, I just think almost like the speed difference played an advantage as well with Volkanovski.
Sweet. Simon, last word on this one. Who do you have and why?
Yeah, I'm going towards Volkanovski. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Holloway, but I think as well, watching recent interviews of his, I don't know whether he's going to be as sharp as he might need to be against Volkanovski. Like he's definitely got the fight IQ for it, but I can see Volkanovski taking it and Holloway taking quite a bit of damage here as well.
Interesting. So that moves us on to the main event of the evening. We've not differed at all until this. I think this may split us a little bit. Yeah. This is a lot more of a tastier fight than we had 7 days ago, and that's no discredit to Gilbert Burns, because this would have been his third fight in lockdown, and what a turnaround this would have been if he would have become world champion. But that's still not to say that it won't happen in the future. But we've got the fight we all wanted, the fight that we're all excited for, and I feel like Usman needs someone like this because he's got that sort of GSP and Tyron Woodley feel where he's a character and he's good, but when he fights, it's kind of, sort of what you're getting. It can be quite boring. It nullifies a lot, but that's what champions need to do sometimes, and we've seen that with the great GSP. Start with you, Brian. Masvidal and Usman. Firstly, out of 10, how excited are you for this?
Yeah, I'll go full 11 on that one, mate, because as soon as it turned around and there was rumours that it was going to happen, and there's been all this stuff as well during lockdown about fighters unhappy with contracts, Dana White saying, well, you signed, you still got 7 fights or whatever else is going on, and then for this one to turn around and it be George Masvidal to step in. It's the fight we wanted. It's the fight that makes sense. It's totally the fight that should have been there for the belt a long time ago, and it's that one again. It's head and heart. My head says Usman will be too big, too strong, full camp, and we've seen what he's done for the likes of Colby Covington and people like that. 7 years undefeated, I think it is 6 or 7 years. So he's so good. But then you got this gangster guy in front of you. They can throw a knee at Ben Askren and spark him out in 5 seconds. Lit Nate Diaz up, lit him up in the most relaxed and just awesome way. So my heart is Masvidal all the way. That's the guy. Give me that. Give me Street Jesus with the belt around his waist. But I think actually it's, if Usman can get hold of him, I think it's going to be a difficult night for Masvidal.
Who are you picking then? Who gets the W? Who
Well,
walks out champion?
I think Usman stays champion. I'm not happy about that. There's no smile going on here, mate. And listen, I think me and Masvidal definitely own hair dryers. All right, AB? Yeah? What are you gonna say to Masvidal about that?
I'll tell him the same thing as well.
It looks Masvidal's the kind of guy that just drives down the motorway with that out the window to dry his hair.
If you went on look, it's like me and Bryan like Masvidal, and then you two are like Usman because of the short hair and.
Listen, mate. Well, then Usman is definitely going to win. If those two are in the opposite corner to us two, and it's some sort of team grappling MMA match, we're fucked, man.
Yeah, I agree.
We are fucked. Listen, little teeny tiny Aaron Aby twisted my bodies in ways that I never thought. I could almost suck myself off after a roll with Aaron Aby. It was ridiculous.
Mate, we're not. It's not even worth it. We've got technically 2 blue belts against 2 brown belts, and we've got no chance.
No, mate. No, listen, I'm committing MMA suicide before that ever happens.
One thing to put into this, and obviously we've been a 6 or 7 day notice, and there's been a lot short of turnarounds and longer turnarounds, and one of the highlight ones is probably Michael Bisping. I think it's around 10 days notice. He finished Luke Rockhold against someone that he got beat against before, that he was a massive underdog, and he made weight, he won the belt, and that's history now. With this, a bit like the Holloway thing, eating pizza, he's already 22 pounds overweight. Has he been training? Was he thinking what's going to happen? I think Masvidal on a full camp, I think he has a better chance against Usman. That's one thing I would like to see in the future. But it is it's entertaining to see what would happen in circumstances. You've got lockdown, you've got last minute change of opponent, you've got Masvidal eating pizza in Rome before he even gets here. Abu, how do you see this going?
I agree with what you're saying. Obviously, it would be better for him to have a full fight camp. But he's not the type of fighter. He can finish fights in 2-3 seconds, 1 second, half a second. He's a finisher. Yeah. So it's not like it was more surprising for me, Bisping beating Rockhold, because Bisping's a volume guy. He's normally going to beat you up for 5 rounds and put pressure on you, whereas Masvidal will turn your lights off in 1 shot. So like with him on the camp side of things, I think that it won't go against him as much as you think, just because of the type of fighter he is. I think he has got the potential. Like, we've seen him do well in grappling as well, because he attacks submissions off his back. He attacks submissions when he's getting taken down. He's not afraid to sometimes give up bottom position for a submission. But I just think I'm going to go with Usman. I think just like I want Masvidal to win as well. 100% want him to win. But I think Usman's got very good wrestling. I think he's quite a clever fighter as well.
Simon?
I'm going to go with Masvidal winning this.
Wow.
I don't think he's the kind of guy to take time off training. Like, I think he's going to come in there. They've had a bit of an exchange over Twitter and like a bit of a war of words between them. And I think since the sort of contract disputes, I don't think Masvidal would have taken a day off training. I think he would have still been training, still keeping his conditioning up. And he's very good defensive wrestling. Like, he's got very good defensive wrestling. And I don't think Usman, if he does get him down, I don't think he'll be able to keep him down. If he gets him against the cage, I think he's going to be able to fight off the cage. It's going to be a tasty match. I think there's going to be a lot of damage given, but I can see Masvidal finishing Usman.
Wow. I do think what Aby said was sort of hitting the nail on the head. I think the way Masvidal fights, he doesn't really give up too much. I think if he's off his back, I think he'll do a lot of damage from his back, because I feel like that's sort of where the fight will mostly play out for at least 3 of the rounds if it goes the full way. And off his back, if he sort of cuts Usman open and sort of puts a bit of doubt in Usman's mind, he might start peppering him and finish him like he did to Diaz. I feel like if I had to put money on this one, I will go to Usman. So out of the 5 fights, the only one that's gone against one of us is Simon saying Masvidal. Everyone else is doing the same. But
I completely agree with what Simon said as well. Though I do think this is the closest fight on the card, and like Masvidal does have good defensive wrestling. He can finish a fight in a split second. The fight, or every round, will start standing. And this is the one I'm most torn between, but I am going to go with slightly Usman. But like we spoke about earlier, I think this is one of those 60-40 fights.
Yeah, definitely. That concludes 251. We'll move on to the midweek card next, and more so because we've got a lot of people that we know and friends on this card, and a lot of people that we've worked with. 251 is stacked. I'm definitely looking forward to it. We all know MMA. We've made these predictions. Most likely we're going to get 3 out of 5 at best. It's not going to always go the way it is. That's why we love the sport so much. So it's probably the best card of the year. And if there's a couple of upsets, even though it's against what we've predicted, maybe me and Aaron will be upset on our topology predictions. That's why we love the sport. The next card midweek, who did I speak to this about? It was a few weeks ago. I can't remember who I spoke to this about, but I feel like this is sort of the prospect card. The people that are probably up and coming, have getting good fights, like Dan Eigen and Qatar as a main event. And then we've got a lot of people, like Brian said before, a lot of the European fighters, John Phillips, Bukowskis, Jack Shaw, Molly McCann, Chris Fishgold. It's a stat card with regards to who we follow, especially locally. We'll touch on the local talent, and we'll start off with John Phillips, who's a fellow Welshman for you, Aaron. Where do you see this fight going against Khamzat Chimaev? If I pronounced that right, Brian?
Chimaev, there you go.
See, I knew you would get me.
I think it's a tough fight. I think the good thing with John, he's coming off a 15-second win or something in his last fight. So he's taking confidence, and he is one of the type of fighters, again, obviously in that weight category, who can turn your lights out if he lands once. And I will never go against a fellow Welshman.
So we won't touch too much on every fight, because Aby's got to go in 10 minutes, and then when Aby leaves, us two and Brian will sort of finish up the programme. We'll move next to, we'll give this to Simon Modestes, who we interviewed a few weeks ago. He's got a last-minute change. He's very confident on the podcast. Do you see him getting the win here, or do you see an upset?
I can see him taking the win here. Like I said, from when we were speaking to him, he's been very active. His training seems to have gone well. He's very sure of his conditioning as well. I'm looking forward to watching it. And yeah, I can see Modestes coming away with a W here.
No, I agree with that. I think maybe a finish for Modestes on this one. I've been watching his sort of Instagram stories and stuff. He's very, very confident out there, getting the W. I'm looking forward to watching. I've been watching for a long time. Former Cage Warriors light heavyweight champion, so good pedigree, and obviously Cage Warriors, no joke. Brian, someone that you've worked with before, obviously through Carl Prince in Lerone Murphy, his second fight in the UFC against Ricardo Ramos. One thing I'll touch on sort of with Lerone, he was sort of like the unknown going in the UFC. He sort of had a few sort of mediocre guys and opponents moving up, but it was more tough to get him opponents rather than who he was facing. That was the problem. But when he stepped in and made his UFC debut, he really proved himself. He was definitely the underdog. To even get the draw in that on paper was hard, but what a performance that was. And how do you sort of see this going? I feel like this is his coming out party. I feel like he will be one to watch for the next few years.
Listen, I don't think you can give anybody on their debut a much tougher fight than Zubir Tukhugov. I don't think you can because, thank you, bless you. He's Habib's main training partner, and that means, and when I say main training partner, he does well with Habib in the grappling and in the sparring. And Lerone Murphy showed us what he's all about after that first round. Got caught, got dropped, and then came back. And his wrestling stood up to it. Against the cage, his defensive wrestling. And that was always the question. You look at Lerone's highlight reel knockouts, you think he's got a 49-second knockout, a 46-second knockout. All flashy kicks, really good movement, stunning striker, very athletic young man, coming from a great camp. under Carl Prince, Manchester top team over there. And I think the UFC were surprised at how well he did to get the draw with Zabir. And now they're giving him another tough test. This is somebody who's been in there how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights in the UFC. That counts for something. Those nerves, you get used to it. You get used to turning up and being part of that big machine. So Lerone, this is a fight where, yeah, you're exactly right. If he can do what he does, and I think he can get the finish here. I really do. I think the 2 losses on this guy's records, one's a rear naked choke, and then Saeed Nurmagomedov finished him by body kick and punches. And I think Lerone's a better striker and a more powerful striker, more accurate striker than Saeed. So I think if in that cage, Lerone can start off well, start relaxed, and really just express himself, then I think we're going to see that this is where we will really see people recognise that Lerone Murphy is not just another fighter. He's something special, and that's what he truly is. He is. Yeah. You talk about the people that train and spar with him. You talk about who he spars with. He mixes it up. The likes of Connor Hitchens, Shai Abusive, Jordan Barton go over there. Kane Musa. You got just killer after killer driving there to have these rounds, and he doesn't turn down rounds with anyone. He's not somebody who pampers himself and will pick who he does spars with. And when you hear about how other fighters talk about him and how other fighters talk about what it's like to spar him, that's when you know that this young man, this is his second fight in the UFC, but I think it's just the beginning. I think he can go a very long way.
No, definitely.
It's definitely a strange one, the fact that you sort of somewhat. So it's been hard to match him for so many years, speaking to Carl and obviously trying to match him on our shows back a few years ago. It's hard to match, whereas now he's in the UFC, people haven't got a choice but to fight him. If they want to get anywhere, they've got to fight him. He's definitely had the harder fight as a debut compared to this fight now. Doesn't mean that this opponent's not someone that can put it on Lerone or defeat Lerone, but I feel like this is where Lerone will shine through, and I feel like a performance of the night bonus could definitely be on the cards in this one, and this is what I'm looking forward to. And plus, he's a Manchester kid, and me and Simon support that all day long.
Wait a second. This is going to be in an empty arena, so the fans are going to get to hear Carl Prince corner, which is one of the funniest. He is, when you listen to when you're caged and you're commentating on the fight, you can hear him, and he says stuff to get in the heads of the other corner over. Yeah. You can see it wind people up. So if people want to, what will be performance of the night will be Carl Prince and Luke Barnett in Lerone's corner. Forget the fight, just turn your volume up and listen to the cheeky northern bastard as he rips into everyone else. He's great.
I think from Lerone's last one as well, in the lead up to that, he was coming to cams quite a lot, working on his wrestling and his grappling, and working with him with his back against the cage and getting some rounds with him. His conditioning and his work rate is up there, and sort of seeing what he'd sort of built up when he'd been down with us was great to see him sort of transfer it and sort of from relatively close to the camp as well. Nice.
Next up, another Welshman, we'll give it to you, Aby, Jack Shaw, who we interviewed a few days ago. I don't know if you watched it yet, but I did ask for you. How does it feel to be the second best Welsh fighter compared to you? And he did give it you. He said it's just one of them things. He thought you meant Brett Johns at first, but how do you feel like this going? He's had 4 opponents. I did ask him about the Nathaniel Wood thing, and that fight was never offered between him and even the Volkanovski teammate. That was never even offered to him directly, so he has no even knowledge of that, but he would have said yes to anyone at this point. He just wanted to get in there. How do you feel this going up against a last minute opponent?
Jack Shaw is, as we all know, very, very skilled fighter. From a new up and coming gym, and I think of Brett Johns, he's doing a lot of training with now, so I think their level is just going to, you put them 2 together and they're just going to go boom, up again. And I think with them pushing each other, and I also do think, same with Lerone, that sometimes these small gyms with good coaches can have an advantage, and I think Jack Shaw takes a win. We've seen him come through the UK scene pretty much unscathed, and now his UFC debut, rear naked choke, I think, was it? finished.
Yeah, quite quickly as well.
Yeah, like I still think he's working his way up to proving he's a top contender in the division, and I think this will be another step on that journey for him.
I agree. I think with Jack, I feel like what you said about Brett, and Brett's on a few days after him. I think it's a week on Saturday he's on, and they're both there together, and they'll be working with each other, and they'll sort of keep on raising level. Iron sharpens iron, as they say. It's definitely like the bantamweight division with them two in it is very, very exciting. Next, we'll move on. We'll go back to you, Brian. Next gen, Molly McCann making a fifth fight in the UFC against Talia Santos. A couple of notes that I've got from this is that she's on a 3-fight win streak after losing a UFC debut, which is sort of a tough ask to sort of come back from mentally after being on such a high, being the Cage Warriors female champion. And now she's facing a tough test in Santos, who's 15-1. This girl can finish. How do you see this one going?
Well, firstly, I think Molly McCann is really growing into the UFC, and that's and I'll be absolutely honest. When I watched her in Cage Warriors, I thought she was good. I thought she was tough. I thought she had that Scouse demeanor where you know you're in for a fight. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Brad Pickett just phoning there. Just probably trying to tell me to shut up. Friend. He's the only one who rings me, mate. He's the only one who rings me. But when I watched her in Cage Warriors, I just didn't think she was quite that caliber. And obviously the female side of the sport has evolved, and you've seen that. But I think that first loss, you look at her then, and you look at her wins since then. The way she's dug deep, the adversity she's gone through, that eye injury she took in one of the fights, to still get the win out of that. And then also physically, like the shape she is in now is phenomenal. She looks absolutely unreal. There was some shots of her. I think she was sparring Megan Morris, and they had some shots afterwards, and she just looks absolutely ripped. And I think that loss, and it's that cliche, might be the best thing that happened to her, because she has really grown into that. And I'm going to pick her in this one. I think Talia Santos is exactly that, a tough opponent. Only one other loss on her record in all 16 fights. But I think Molly McCann, there's something about confidence, there's something about belief. She hits hard, she's tough, she's always going to make it a fight. And I'm really like, the thoughts I had on her back in Cage Warriors, they've gone. They have absolutely gone. I think now she doesn't just make the numbers up there. I think she could do really well with the trajectory she's on at the minute.
No, I completely agree. I think Molly is one of them that's sort of growing into her own, like you say. It's definitely a tough fight. It makes it more exciting to be that way, because I think if Molly gets the W here, which I think she will as well, it sort of elevates her even further into stardom and the highlights, and maybe towards that title shot, which I know she wants. And the team like Next Gen around her, Ellis Hampton's out there and Rimmer and stuff. She's got the team around that she feels comfortable with, and she's flying that Everton FC flag nice and high, which obviously Aby doesn't like, being a Liverpool fan. She's on top of the world right now, so I feel like it'll take a lot to stop her. So I'm looking forward to that one. Simon, we'll go with you next. Chris Fishgold. I'm also give it to Aaron as well. He's a guy that's been around a long time. He's fought the who's who in Britain and Europe. Cage Warriors champion. Is against Jared Gordon. Simon, what do you think about this one?
I think it's going to be quite an exciting match, this one. Like, it's rightly on the main card as well. They're both coming off a loss, and I think they're both going to come out with a point to prove. I can see Fishgold sort of coming out with a win on this one, like outworking him, delivering a lot of damage and sort of doing what he does best. But I can see it being quite an exciting match, and I can see it going to a decision, if I'm honest.
Nice. What do you think, Az, on this one?
Yeah, I think it's another good fight. Like, Chris Fishgold hasn't had an easy run in the UFC, has he? Like, he straight in there, Calvin Kattar.
Using the main event.
He's the main event, and you know, one of those title contenders you can argue with. And then after Calvin Kattar, I think, did he fought
Daniel Timo.
And then Makwan, who's fighting. So he's game. He's fought the best, and he's again the type of guy you could wrap your neck at any time and finish the fight. And I think this one's another one of those fights where he can get a finish. I think hopefully he can get a finish within the first 3 rounds, and maybe the standard guillotine will be let loose.
Brian, any thoughts on this one as a matchup for Chris?
I think it's a tough one. I think it's a really tough one. I think this guy, you look at the people that he's fought before. I mean, he's got a win over Hakrin Diaz, and Hakrin Diaz is so tough, so strong. He's one of those you hope Fishgold rises to. It's the litmus test. They've both got a bit of a patchy record in the last couple of fights, but yeah, Fishgold. If he this is where he's got to dig deep, and he's really got to not let those nerves of that thoughts of getting cut and all that stuff going on in his head. He's got to dig deep to turn out the best performance he can, because with that opponent, he's going to need it, because it's not an easy fight. It's high up on the card, and Fishgold's really got to stay switched on for the full 3 rounds.
Do you think the loser gets cut?
I think it's close. I think at the minute with just the way it is at the minute, I know the UFC are churning out the shows, but I think I'll be surprised if both of them keep their contract after this.
It's an interesting time at the minute, because we were saying to Jack that he won't be around for the Brett Johns fight. They're sort of shipping him straight back to Wales and leaving his dad out there and the coaches to sort of deal with Brett's fight. But it could be a thing where on that card or the card the week after, where there's a bantamweight and they need someone and Jack's in town, and there could be a quick turnaround. Or even if Chris loses this one, which I'm leaning towards Chris as a W here, maybe they think, yeah, he's going to be cut now. And then a lightweight pulls out, or a featherweight, and he needs to step in again. And that can resurrect his career. It's definitely a strange time. I don't think they'll come out and say, you're cut. I think they'll wait until this is back to normal. And then if they don't really need certain fighters, that's when they will cut, because they're signing fighters left, right, and centre from random promotions and random areas, especially in America, just to keep people active, because they have to be free fights. And then obviously we got to June, and some of them hadn't even fought, which is crazy. Before we let you, Aaron, go, because I know you've got training at 4:00. Well, we talked about this on the podcast right at the beginning. Minor Lazez here, who's in the co-main event, was the main event of the card, which you fought on in Dubai in February. How do you feel like his fight will go? He was the Dubai hero. We heard a lot about him building up to the Pro Bellum card. How do you see it going?
To be honest, I haven't really looked into his opponent much. Who is he fighting?
Al Hassan. I think he's 2-0 in the UFC or something similar, maybe a bit more.
Yeah, he beat Nico Price last, which is a big win, 43-second KO.
4-1, yeah.
So that obviously going to be a tough fight for him. I know while we were out there, obviously he had a lot of hype, didn't he? He performed well out there. But I don't really know enough about it to look into it and make a prediction other than what I've seen. And obviously late notice. Hopefully he's ready, because I think it was 2 weeks notice, wasn't it?
About 2.5 weeks got signed to go. Yeah, that's when they announced it.
Unless he knew sooner he was fighting. It would be cool for him to win, and obviously I've been on his last card with him, on the same show with him, and he was the main event, so it would be cool if he can win. So
we will move on to the main event now, see what our predictions are mainly for this one. We've quickly gone through this card, but we got Calvin Kattar against Danaig, if that's how you pronounce it. It's a great fight for a main event. Like I say, this is more of a prospect card, and see where people sort of lay after this. Brian, have you got a winner here?
Listen, you've got some cracking main events. The whole Fight Island cards that they put out are ridiculous. The card before that, Masvidal, Usman, Yan, Aldo, Volkanovski and all that. This fight, out of all 4 of the events, could steal the show, because both are just ridiculously aggressive, talented fighters. Qatar's win over Stevens showed a lot of his growth and just his self-belief as well. Did not back down an inch against the shots of Stevens, who a lot of people reckon is one of the hardest hitters in that division. And then you got Dan, and he is God knows how many fights he's undefeated now, but He is, look at the people he's beaten. Edson Barboza in his last fight, Mirsad Bektik. And if you hear about how American top team talk about Mirsad Bektik, and that to get a win over that man himself, just shows how good he is. So for me, this really is a fight that I think is going to surprise people and maybe catch a few eyes, despite it being on this prospect card. But I think Qatar, I think he can take more damage, and I think he gives damage, a lot more damage in the fights when he's involved in.
So who are you leaning towards then? Who's getting the Qatar?
Kelvin Qatar, mate.
Simon?
I'm going to go with Qatar on this one.
Thanks, mate.
Bryan sort of said it all there. Like, I'm going to have to agree with what he's saying.
Sweet. Aby?
Yeah, I'm commentator. I love his fighting style. I love his boxing. I think his boxing and footwork. Like if I'm teaching a young up and coming kid, he's one of the guys telling them to watch for technique and how crisp and fluid he is with his striking. The only thing that could make it interesting if maybe he gets put on his back. And we'll see him work off his back. That could make the fight a bit more interesting. So you don't know the game plan coming in, but if it stays on the feet, I'm going with Calvin, and he's one of my favourite fighters just because of how crisp and neat he is.
Yeah, I think his range and his output and his cardio it breaks people down, and we've seen that in his previous fights. So I can see him maybe getting the decision on this one, or maybe a TKO late in the 4th or 5th round. It's definitely an exciting fight, like Bryan said, and it's a great sort of midweek card building up to the next one. Just quickly before we sort of leave this card, we'll sort of go around in a circle. Is there any one fighter you're looking forward to most? I know we've got a lot of homegrown fighters in the UK and a lot of friends on this one. Aby, what are you looking forward to most? Which performance?
I'm looking forward to the Welsh guys, but I do think the Kelvin Cater fight could be fight of the night.
Lisa?
So look, I'm going to upset Aby here. Hamzat Chimaev from All Stars. I think he is going to be one to watch, not just on this card, but in the future. He's coming out of All Stars. He's one of the main sparring partners for Alexander Gustafsson. He is an absolute monster. He's been on those Brave shows, just destroying everyone. I think all of his wins are by finish. He's up against one of the hardest hitters I've ever seen in John Phillips, so he's got to keep his chin nice and safe. Yeah. But I think Hamzat taking this fight on short notice. He's been on the radar of the UFC for a while, even though he's only got 6 fights. And I think if he gets this victory, it's not going to be long before we're seeing him on the main card and in main events.
It's a strange one, this, because I've been watching a lot of these fights for a long time, just like we all have, and interviewing Jackie in midweek. I've warmed to him a lot. I was a big fan of him for years anyway, but I think his attitude towards the sport and his knowledge really makes me, I'm looking forward to him. Vasily Lerone, being a Manchester guy and following his career since right at the beginning under Carl and stuff. Looking forward to that. And then Modestas as well. I've dealt with him with regards to Empire, and he's supported me, and I just want to make sure them guys do well. And then the next gen guys, I've sort of grew up sort of being knowing Rimmer for so long with his amateur guys and him building up. I want to see his guys do well because he's put so much hard work into this, and he was sort of the beginning of Liverpool for MMA, or one of them. And then obviously from there you have like Jason Tan and Phil Turner and Dean Garnett, and obviously like yourself as the crop that he's sort of brought through throughout the years is incredible. So it's a stacked card. I'm so happy we've got so many people we know on this, because it sort of makes us more involved and more.
Yeah, it's good to have emotional connections with people on the card, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm going to have to leave you guys and go and break some guidelines. Peace out.
No worries, man. We'll speak to you soon, as I'll probably message you later on.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Nice one,
See you later, mate. Take care.
Bye.
Lacey, before we get Simon back, I think he's nipped to the door. I don't know if you've seen it, obviously sorting out your missus's tyres and stuff, that the UFC have announced that the Reebok deal does end at the end of the year, and they have transitioned over to Venum. So Venum will be, from next year, the new sort of like a tyre affiliate for them. But Reebok is not completely going. That's going to be the new UFC footwear brand, which is quite a cool. It still keeps them involved. Have you got any sort of comments in regards to the kits? Do you think they're needed? Does it stop what you think fighters making good money? Or do you feel like the transition of Venum coming into it and Reebok staying is a good thing?
I'm not that bothered about Reebok staying. That's whatever. That's obviously something they've done to sweeten the deal. I think that the actual negotiations were between three companies: Under Armour, Nike, or Nike, if you want to say it that way, and Venum. And for me, the UFC made, I think it was a mistake with Reebok, because they brought somebody into the arena who was a corporate brand, well established in lots of other fields like athletics and CrossFit and all that sort of stuff, but they didn't know the sport. What they've done with Venum, which I think they should have done from the start, is go with somebody that knows and understands the sport and the people. And Venum has been involved in MMA, combat sports for so long that I think it's a good thing. I think that's a good relationship to have. I still miss the little bits of individuality you get with fighters wearing their own stuff. Brad Pickett's braces and vest. Henry Cejudo's gold shorts, I miss them. So you miss the characters, and obviously off the back of that, you miss the fighters. And they have lost a lot of money doing this, especially the ones at the higher ends that could really make a lot off of sponsorship. But I'm interested. I'm interested to see what Venum bring. I think it's, if we were to wipe the slate clean and start again, I would rather have somebody like Venum be involved in designing this, somebody who knows the sport. So it's interesting. There's always gonna be people that lose out, and the UFC are always going to take the biggest piece of the pie. But I think they had to get rid of Reebok. Reebok has been a disaster as far as just how the kits look, the whole image, the whole PR mess that has gone with it. Good riddance, Reebok.
I think with regards to Venum stepping in, that's the first sort of thoughts I had. It was like, feels like a more of a brand that represents MMA. When I first started looking into it, and brands like Hayabusa and Venum and stuff like that, it feels like they've always been there. Tap outs, or just like I'm wearing coincidentally. People that have been around the sport for a long time know what they're making, know what the fighters need. Me and Simon, I think, touched on it more than a few podcasts ago about how it should work, or how we feel it should work, in the fact that when you start out, so like when Jack Shaw just signed or the Roan just signed, I think up until the first 5 fights, you get $2,500 or something similar like that from Reebok. I feel like as a debut, or the first 5 fights, that's probably more sponsor money than they've probably had for most fighters, which is great. But when you start getting towards the latter end, like your Connors or your Donald Cerrones that have been around for a long time or more than a few years that can bring in the money, it's sort of, there's a glass ceiling and you're sort of hitting it constantly. I feel like these brands is good. You've got Venum, they'll get money from that. They'll probably get money from Reebok now, which might mean more, which is probably a good thing that there's 2. But I feel like when you step in, you should be able to bring one sponsor of your own, you choose, and then when you get towards the main events and your champions, you get a second or something along those lines. Because I think that's more fair, because at the minute you get UFC just bringing in who they like, Muscle Farm, Modelo, Bud Light, whoever they want, and the fighters don't see a cut of that. It's just what they want to put on the canvas for a bit of money. Simon, what do you think with regard? I don't know if you've heard what we were saying or you've read it this morning. Venum have taken over Reebok.
I've not seen the full details of the deal yet, so I don't know whether is it clear whether it's like the Reebok deal where it's just a blanket sponsorship of all the athletes, or
they've not announced the details. All they've said that they're taking over and Reebok's now moving to the UFC's footwear. So Reebok's not going away. Venum will be designing new kits for the fighters.
See, for that, I don't know if Venum's going to have enough capital or to be able to sort of match the bid that Reebok put in. So I don't know if that's going to give any wiggle room for the athletes to have extra sponsorships on the side of that.
Right. Okay.
It'd be interesting to see if that's the case, or if Venum have come in and just complete overhaul and said we're going to take the whole of Reebok's place. It's like, just for nostalgia, I enjoyed the old sponsor banners that they used to have, and seeing like someone's garage and someone's barbershop and things. I enjoyed it, but also for the benefit of the fighters, like, yeah, that'd probably be 70% of their income.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause we all know, unless you're top of the bill, you're not getting the biggest paychecks from the UFC, considering what the amount of time that you spend training and then fighting. It's not just the one night you get paid for, it's the 12-week build up to that. And say you do is it 10 and 10 deal now, or is it 12 and 12?
12 and 12 at the minute.
So say you're on a 12 and 12 for your first fight, and you've had 12 weeks build up for that. It's a good amount of money, don't get me wrong, but then you've also got your managers, your coaches, your expenses, everything else out of that. So you might only come out with, if you come out with a win, 12k of that after everything's been taken off you. And then if you fight 2 or 3 times a year, you're putting your health on the line for 36k a year, essentially.
When people can sit in an office for that, and obviously it's not the career you want, and you've got more free time. I completely get where you're coming from, and I think I touched this a couple of podcasts ago. There's certain states in America where they've got tax, and then if you're not from that state, you get taxed even more to make sure they take the bulk of it, which I think is quite a horrible thing to be a part of as a fighter. Bryan, have you dealt with any sort of fighters or spoke to any fighters personally, even around the world, even the Russian guys that you deal with in sort of Eastern Europe, where they won't sign for the UFC because of these sort of kick deals and these sort of glass ceilings?
I think, I mean, obviously there's that issue, and like you said, when you get to the UFC, possibly you'll earn more money in sponsorship because of the platform you're on, even if it's not something you can wear on your shirt or whatever else. But it's such a hard thing, the sponsorship deal, and also just when you can see how much money the UFC makes, and we know guys that are earning like Sam just broke down. They could be like, with 3 fights a year, they might be walking away with 36k before tax, and that's madness when you're looking at the lights.
Dollars as well, because when it converts to English,
and then you're losing that as well. Then you get taxed. It's so hard because you want the fighters to get everything that they deserve, because it's not just a 12-week camp, like Simon said. It's the years. It's the years of coming up on the amateur scene, paying, driving yourself to tournaments, doing your training, your own physiotherapy. All the stuff you need to get the tools to get to the level if you're going to commit to this life. So when they get there, when they get to these shows that can pay them good money, you really want to see them milk it for what it's worth, because there's no guaranteed retirement age for a fighter. You could get injured in training, lose that fight, and then maybe never come back again because of the injury, or because you can't afford to. You have to get a proper job. A proper job, do you hear me? But you know what I'm saying? So it's so difficult because we know what we want. We know these people. We see, and we've watched, we've called their fights, we've seen them compete, we've seen them trained with them, and you can see what they put into, with the sacrifice it takes to get to this sort of level. So when you hear that they're only getting $2.5 from someone like Reebok, who, when you look at the shows and you hear Dana White talking about breaking the record for the gate again, and pay-per-view sales, and all these deals that they're signing, and even when they sold the UFC and the Zuffa got bought out, you hear about those $1 billion, and you think it's got to trickle down. It's dripping down. It's not even trickling down at the minute. So it's just such a difficult thing, because there's no way that the UFC are going to let go of what they do right now. They say they're not giving you a fight, they're giving you an opportunity. They're not giving you a career, they're giving you an opportunity. So and it's on a knife edge. Your whole life is on a knife edge of being healthy, being in the right place, earning enough money. But I hope they change a bit. I hope they learn the lessons from Reebok, and I hope they change those brackets for Venum, and I hope they do give him some more opportunities. But if I'm absolutely honest, I think it's going to be as tight and as restrictive as it has been, but just with a different brand.
Yeah, I feel like the options that you said, I did read about the Under Armour and Nike. I didn't hear of anything to do with Venum until today, shockingly enough. I literally thought if it's between Reebok re-signing Nike and Under Armour, I was leaning towards more Under Armour, because I feel like Reebok and Nike are sort of on the same thing and won't really bring anything different. We've seen through the football kits for years, even the sort of junior leagues and stuff that buy the kits, they're just the same redone kits with a bit of a different colour or different tint, or the same stripes or whatever it is. You don't really see anything different. Whereas I think Venum will bring maybe a bit of an edge. The logo is very cool. I think it'll stand out. They can do a lot with that. And Under Armour, I think they understand the sport or athletics more than most because they're all around the world. They deal with the Olympic side, the proper elite, and they know exactly what they need. And I feel like they would bring in more money than Venum could. So I'll probably lean towards Under Armour if I could. But I've got no problem with Venum. I'm glad Reebok sort of out the picture. If it means, or not out the picture completely, if it means that Reebok still have to pay, so their $2,500 for the kit is now $1,000 at lowest, and then Venum still have to pay the $2,500 for the kit. At least that's an extra $1,000 that the fighters are getting, and then it builds up gradually. I like that there's sort of a split. That's pretty cool. But in relation to the fighters and what they get paid and stuff, I don't think what the problem that a lot of fans and fighters have with the elites or the UFC side with regards to what they're getting paid, and then the fighters that are building up the promotions like UKFC and Probellum and stuff like that, people that are sort of building up the fighters, they go, oh, why are you only paying them that much? It's like, because there's not that much money in the sport, but when you get the highest level like the UFC, there is the money. They're just not spreading it out evenly.
I think probably one of the bigger issues then amongst that is the unity amongst the fighters.
One second, boys.
No worries.
The business deal originally with Reebok was great on paper. It added value to the company. It made them look more viable, and it came in around the USADA deal where it made it look more viable. They sold it for all the billions, and then the truth about the deal came out afterwards.
Do you feel like there should be? Who do you feel like if there was going to be a union, who do you feel like would be the catalyst of it? Do you think it's like the McGregors, or do you feel like it's a group towards lower down?
I don't think McGregor's selfless enough to do that. Like, he's quite happy in his position. He's made his money. He's got his career, and he's a martial artist. I don't think a union or not will affect him personally. I think it'll be guys like your GSP or even like your Tyron Woodley, your Masvidal. Like, there needs to be unity amongst the fighters where they can be like, we see how much the company's making. We are essentially the company. Without the fighters, there's no UFC.
Yeah.
But the fighters can go elsewhere and still earn a paycheck.
Yeah.
And I think the fighters need to realize their power, and with them all working together, that's where the strength's going to be. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. I think there's a lot more going on that the fighters have to focus on, more so getting fights to pay the bills. I think that's going to be more important than actually putting a union together at the moment. But I think there needs to be some sort of union come together for fighters. And if it means in the short term fighters going on strike and not getting the events that we might want, in the short term it'll be bad, but in the long term, especially for fighters' rights and everyone who's trying to make a career out of the sport, it means they're going to get what they deserve. Like Bryan said, like, there's no retirement plan. It's almost we're giving you an opportunity here, not the fact that they've trained for years and years leading up to this fight. So yeah, I just think some of the capital and some of the money that's being earned by the UFC through sponsorships and other endorsements needs to trickle down towards the fighters.
Yeah, I feel like people like Masvidal, even though he's fighting now, before that he stood his ground in relation to, I'm not fighting unless I get the money that I want. John Jones is saying if he wants me to go to heavyweight and face someone like Francis Ngannou, he needs to be paid more because for him it's a higher risk. Otherwise, the way he fought is like, well, I can just sit pretty in the light heavyweight division because he is so dominant. Connor's argued for more money, Khabib's argued for more money, and funny thing is, these are the fighters that are big, that are the fighters that are making money. You're right, Bri.
Welcome back. Sorry.
It's all right. We were just saying about maybe how a union would work and who would sort of be the catalyst of it. Would it be the higher end, like the Masvidals at the minute and John Jones that are arguing it, or do you feel like it would be the lower ranked fighters that would need to unionize together? And like you said before about Dana saying it's more of an opportunity, which I think is the wrong term to say. How do you feel like it will go? And we'll leave on that after that.
So I think it's one of those. It's whoever does it has got to be in the right position. It has to be. If you're going to get anybody on board for the union, you have to get one of the big names. You have to get a needle mover, as Dana White would say.
Yeah.
But doing that, you are putting yourself, and we've seen how they've dealt with other people that have unionized or attempted to before. And I think it's just too much. Like, you've got to fall on your sword, basically, as one of those fighters to do it. And they've said it for so long. They've said it for all the right reasons why they need to do it, for their financial gain, for healthcare, for all the stuff that you need to support yourself through a career, even though they've got him on independent contracts. But it will take somebody right at the top of the game to say, it doesn't matter now. I'm going to stand here for the fighters and not for myself. And it's I just can't see it happening, not for a very, very long time. And I can't see the UFC letting it happen. I think they have ways of manipulating and pressuring, and you've heard about it before, where there's been people that have caused trouble or spoken out, and then it affects the whole gym, the whole roster, the whole their management roster. They just get ostracized and they don't get the opportunity. So that voice gets squashed very quickly. They need a union. It would be great if they had one, but I think we are years away from getting close to that.
Yeah, I feel like I watched a film that's come out quite recently called Dark Waters, and it's got Mark Ruffalo in it. And it reminded me of the film with Concussion with Will Smith in it, where he started to find out with the neurological side that the NFL and American football was causing these sort of injuries, and people not going a bit mad, but it was affecting them, and then they're committing suicide or they were dying early. And then with this Dark Waters, it was to do with the company of Teflon, so the pans, where they were in America, and the sort of the steam and what was going into the water was giving people cancer. And them sort of the NFL and the people, the business side of it, had that much money and that much power. They tried to bury it, threaten the people involved, like the Will Smith and the Mark Ruffalo characters. But because of what they believed, they were willing to fall on the sword, and they had nothing to gain from that. They could have just quit and gone, I'm just going to have the easy life. Whereas, and I feel like you need someone like that who's probably got everything to lose in a way, but he's willing to risk it anyway. It might not even be a fighter. It could be someone that part owns the UFC that thinks it needs to be this. I can't see it being that version, but it needs to be someone that's willing, that's got the power, willing to fall on the sword and take the repercussions of it, because it might just affect their career completely, but long term, it will make everything better.
I think it's going to, like Bryan said, it's going to take someone that's at the top for this to happen, and it might be the end of the career, but maybe like your Jose Aldo, who's arguably due to retire. He's made his money, he's made his legacy, and with someone with a reputation like that, if he went out and was like, no, I'm going to do this now for the fighters, I think that's going to add more to his legacy than just what he's achieved in his fight career. And it's just going to take one person with that much influence of Jose Aldo to make that move. And then there's just going to be a domino effect. And then the fighters will realize that without them, there is no UFC. And then there's going to be a power shift. And I think from that, there needs to be a bit more mutual respect rather than Dana White just basically trying to slap it on the table and being like, no, I'm the big boss here. Like,
I could see, we'll end on this. I could see something.
No, let's end on Dana White slapping it on the table. Let's finish with that image. In fact, you look a little bit like Dana White, Simon. Let's have you relive this for the fans, all right? Come on.
Amazing. Do you know what? I actually agree with that lighting. It does, doesn't it? What I was going to say...
Dana White's garden is very similar as well. He's a king gardener and he keeps it very trim.
What I was going to say is that it could be something as wacky as, I know Dana's got, I think it's a 5-year contract with WME IMG or something similar like that. Once that ends and he's walking away because he wants to create stuff for boxing or something, he could be the guy that goes, right, there needs to be union now.
Oh, what have you been drinking, mate? What has lockdown done? You think Dana White, who pocketed 360 million off of the IMG deal and is making God knows what per second, yet alone per month or hour, would suddenly go, do you know what, guys, you're right. Let's all bring it in for a group hug. I'm with you guys now. It's never going to happen.
No, I mean, as he walks away, he's got his money. Let's just give it the fighters. It could be something as daft as that. Anyway.
Daft is the right word, mate, there. Daft is the
daft as Well, it's been a great episode. Started with Aaron, and then you and Lacey. Look, Lacey and Aaron in between, and now we're finished with Bryan. It's been a pleasure catching up, pal. Hopefully next time I see you, we're both a bit more clean cut at UKFC. And the way that's going, hopefully the card is stacked. We've seen it build, and I know you're getting excited about it.
It's ridiculous, that card, mate. Ridiculous. Honestly, every time you're dropping that, I'm like, I literally go, what are you doing? What are you doing? Those fights are like the stringer. You talked about these, I'm sure. McCracken, Marlon Jones versus Curtis Campbell and Marlon Jones. What are coming together? That ridiculous this card is. So what island have we got? Have we got a little island off Preston, have we? What's
Nightingale Island.
Nice, the Nightingale Island.
I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled something out like that, like he's built.
Yeah, listen, that wouldn't surprise me either. But no, it's been good catching up. Thanks for having.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll get you and Aby back on next time, maybe to discuss the UKFC card once we're a bit closer and we've got a bit more assurance that nothing's changing, because it's going the right direction right now, and we're sort of opening back up, and we've got events that are being booked and stuff. But it's been a pleasure, Bryan.
Always.
And we'll speak soon.
All right, take care. Nice to see you as well, Simon. Take care.
Take
See
care.
you soon, mate. Bye bye.